the two Gay Reefers.
Hey Reefers, today we are at Nick's Aquarium and our channel sponsor, and we have a special treat for you.
We're unboxing some coral, so let's check it out.
Hey guys, welcome back to Nick's. It's been a little while, but we're going to do a coral unpack from one of our exporters. They went to the airport to drop, I think, 40 boxes off, going to the US. We're lucky enough, they sent us a message, would you like some coral? And we're like, beautiful, we're running a bit low. We're going to take you through the procedure of how we unpack our coral here at Nick's. So we've already started to unpack our 4 boxes. We've started to acclimatise the temperature by floating a lot of our hammers and torches and gonnies in here. We have pre-set up a dip container for parasites. So we use a couple of different coral dips here. We use the Coral Me wash-off coral dip, really good for getting rid of flatworms and parasites, all that sort of stuff on your corals. So this is how majority of our corals come packed. A bag liner, then another bag to stop any corals piercing the bag. Normally they come in these polystyrene boxes here that we have set up as a bit of a camera studio as well. These have come with a couple of ice packs in there because we are starting to warm up now. Normally we go through just with a Stanley knife, open our corals up just like that, gently go into the coral, pull them out. As you can see, they are quite full of water when they do come out, and then what we do is go through, tip our water into this container to use for our dip. One thing I will mention is generally when we unpack all our corals, we generally try and do all the same species together in the same water, because what can happen is corals can release, coral warfare on each other, especially like soft corals and SBS and things like that. So generally we'll go through, do all our hammers together, all our frog spawns, all our gonnies, all that sort of stuff in the one tub, and then we'll move on to the next species. Couple of tools that we recommend every hobby should have: some scrubbing brush or toothbrushes, turkey baster. These are really good for getting into the parts of the coral that you can't reach with, to blast out anything nasty. A pair of tweezers to remove anything that you can't reach. Bone cutters as well, which is pretty cool. So we'll go through, we'll investigate these corals, make sure there's nothing nasty on there, and then what we'll do is once we've scrubbed them, then we'll move into our secondary dip, which we generally use.
Reef dip!
That's an iodine-based dip. This is going to help with any damage or stress that could have occurred during our transit. So in here we've got some really nice greens and some toxics, a couple of reverse stems as well. So in this container here we've got our wash-off coral dip in the Coral Me that we just spoke about. So what me and Darren are going to go through now is we're going to get our little scrubbing brush, toothbrushes, scrub the base of the corals, remove anything that doesn't look like it should be there, like any unwanted algae, things like that. Do recommending wearing gloves as well, guys, as you can see, because some coral, can give you a nasty sting. The coral does slime up. Generally avoid touching the actual polyp of the coral as well, because we don't want to damage it or in any shape or form. Completely fine to have the coral out of the water for a few moments. Another thing that I like to do as well with our turkey baster, draw some water up in there, squirt it around into those hard to reach places, just like in this little crevice just in here where we couldn't get our brush. So draw some water up with the dip in, flush it out like that. We're just going to inspect the coral now for any flatworm or anything nasty that could potentially be on here, like algae, things like that. On this Euphilia here, we have noticed we've actually got a hole. So these holes on there could be a boring clam. So normally what I do is like to inspect down in there. You can actually see where the collectors chop the base of this this hammer, so it can sit nice and flush on their rack. But what we're going to do is I normally just get like a little thing down in there to see if anything comes out, which looks like the wholesalers have already removed that, which is good. So that's something to keep an eye on as well when you're buying any of your corals, that you don't have any boring clams that get in there, because they'll actually bore their way all the way up and come all the way through the flesh of the coral, and that can potentially kill a lot of your corals, which you don't want.
So on this one here, we found a mollusk that's stuck between the heads there.
So what we're going to try and do is we're going to attempt to remove this out, because obviously we don't want that eating its way into the side of the coral or anything like that, or potentially doing any damage to the coral. What we might do is we might see if we can just gently remove it out with our tweezers. If not, it looks like we might be able to chop through there with our bone cutters, which will be good. Looks like we're breaking that apart actually, which is good.
Is it just the shell maybe?
Yeah, I think it looks like just the shell actually, but who knows? But we'll still remove it anyway, just because we don't want that in the system. There it goes. Looks like it was actually sort of growing and attached on there. So we'll just grab our turkey baster again. That was a really good find, Darren. There we go. And we removed that little mollusk out of there.
So we found a vermetid snail on here, so don't want that in there, so we'll just chip that off with the tweezer.
Another thing you can do as well, you can put super glue over the top of them as well, which occasionally works too.
What do you reckon about those holes in there?
As you can see, another example of your boring clams that get down all the way into the base of the coral. Looks like they've all been removed. These would have been quite large ones and potentially could have killed this coral later on down the track, but it actually hasn't gone all the way through. Our coral collectors done a really good job of removing those. So what we've just found on this coral here is we've actually found a bit of sponge. So sponges are good because they filter the water, but you don't want them on your coral because they can actually do a lot of damage to your coral, especially around the base, because they can actually produce an acid that will actually eat into the skeleton structure. And so we're just going to give that a bit of a scrub off. 9 times out of 10, it comes off really easily, as you can see, just like that. So if you see any sponge on your coral, guys, just remove it.
And of course, Jake Adams doesn't like sponge in a reef aquarium at all. He thinks it's really bad, so that's another reason why you should remove it.
Yeah, it's very hard to see. Got a little bit of macroalgae on there. We're just going to remove that with our tweezers, just very gently, just by pulling that off if I can. If it wants to let me do that.
Well, not so gently.
Well, not so gently. It's just a bit difficult. Might have to get in there with my fingers actually. There we go, pulled that off. And we've just removed that macroalgae. There's a little bit there as well, because we don't want that to grow over the top of the coral at all. So yeah, so another thing that you need to watch out for. Pretty common on Goniopora for that to happen. What we've done now is we've prepared our water, a 50-50 mix of the water that the corals have come in and from our tank as well. So now that these guys have been in here for roughly 15-20 minutes in the wash-off dip, what we'll do is we'll chuck some reef dip into here, start transferring all our coral that we've scrubbed off into the iodine dip. As you can see in here, a lot of the corals do slime up, and then there's all these, nasty bits of stuff that we've scrubbed off. Generally, I'll go through as well at the end and tip some of this water into a white bucket and see anything that's come off there if we need to be concerned about. These guys here, because they've been sitting roughly in here for about 15-20 minutes, move them over into our main holding system. What we'll actually do as well is we normally have a little bucket of water. We'll just give these guys a bit of a rinse off because we want to minimize any of the coral dip going into the fish system, into the coral system, because coral dips can make your skimmers go crazy, things like that, and can also irritate your corals if they're left in there for an extended period of time. So normally what I do is we'll start with this nice little green hammer. So we'll pick him up very gently, place him into this water, give him a bit of a rinse off to get any of the excess dip off. This guy's now been cleaned, inspected, and we'll take our first coral and we will put him in the tank. And what we'll do afterwards, guys, is we'll go through and we'll line up all these corals, present them beautifully, and then we'll price them up afterwards. Okay guys, now that we've fully unpacked all our coral, we can sit back, relax, feed these beautiful little creatures. We'll go through and we'll target feed all our new coral, so that way they get a good feed from the travel down to us. And this is just a mix of the Energy A, Energy B with the Ocean Nutrition Coral Feast diluted with some salt water.
After the unpack, let's sit back and relax and enjoy all these beautiful corals.
If you've liked today's video, like, comment and subscribe.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Like, comment and subscribe. And as always, be excellent to each other and keep it salty, everyone. Bye for now.
See you guys.
Yes, I'll have to take you up to my secret supplier one day. I'll have to blindfold you, bud.
You know we like blindfolds.
No, I shouldn't have said that.